Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, ships at sea, it is time for another episode of Property of the Week from PropertyLens. As always, I'm Bob Frady, co-founder and CEO of PropertyLens. With me, as always, is
John Siegman, co-founder and president of PropertyLens.
So, John, today we are going to look at a property in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Why, you may ask?
Why, I may ask?
I don't know. I just went to a real estate site and the words South Carolina popped into my head, and this was the first place that showed up. Not completely random because I did pick South Carolina, but pretty much as random as I'm going to get it in the course of
Random
today.
is as random does.
Here's the address. It's 1225 Forest Brook Road in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. 3 beds, 2 baths, 2,200 square feet, and we ran this morning. So let's view the report.
Well, that's stellar. Could you have found a worse house?
You're
not even trying.
It's just random. Listen, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad house. Right away, there's a lot of questions you should be asking about this house. So when we look at our property score, we're at a 622, which is in the lower end of the range.
It's almost a C.
It's almost a C. It's passing grade. You know, D's get degrees. So this house has some questions about it. But what it really has a question about is what some of the environmental hazards are at this location. It's South Carolina.
It's Myrtle Beach. It's going to get wiped out by hurricanes.
What do we see in the snapshot?
Well, it's been in one possible damaging event. It's 43 years old. It's had 3 owners in the last 15 years, which is, you don't want to go much more than that because it might indicate that it's a problem house. But 3 and 15 is fine. They haven't really done anything, at least it required a permit. Not in a flood zone. That's good. Roof's in okay condition. Not a flip property. Repair costs, a little on the pricey side. You know, basically $1,000 a month for the next couple of years. Some significant tax increases the last 6 years. But look at that. On the insurance increase side, pretty low. Way below national average for insurance increase. That could be just because it was priced high already, but at least you know what you're getting into.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with what we do here, red, yellow, green. Green is good, yellow is caution, red is like, hey, take a look at this. So each one of these icons will have a color next to it, and blue is just a number or an estimate. The highs and concerns of this location, you can start to see why the property might not score as well. Now, there's some great highlights. You know, it's brick exterior, it's updated kitchen, privacy features. It's got, you know, an interesting layout and a fireplace. Roof is in fair condition with a fairly high risk rating. So the number one concern already for me is the roof, because the roof's always the number one concern. We are seeing a difference between the listing and assessment square footage for the building, which may mean an unpermitted addition. You've got high insurance because it's South Carolina. You've got an electrical system that's old, and you've got a water heater that may need to be replaced soon. So there's all the features and benefits. Repair costs are about $21,000, as you pointed out. But look at this insurance premium, the estimate for a $300,000 house. That's a hefty insurance premium. But it is what it is. So we walk into this house and I think, okay, the scores aren't great. It doesn't mean we reject the house. It means we start to ask a lot more questions. And here are some of the questions that we would look at. So John, why don't you walk us through some of these questions?
All right. So, you know, given the age of the house, you're coming up to plumbing and sewer concerns, definitely going to be up there. It's the South and it's warm. So termites, just the joy of the southern portion of our country, quite honestly, no matter where you are in it. Flood risk level and flood insurance required. Is it? Maybe, maybe not. We'll go check that. Let's take a look at the roof. We give you the look. You definitely want to find out. Roofs tend to be a very expensive piece of the property. And given that this one is only in fair condition and in a high exposure area, that might be a sooner rather than later. So all of these things would be definitely questions you'd want to ask, just because you need to know. And the disclosure rules vary greatly from state to state. But the one commonality is if you ask the question, the seller is required to answer you honestly.
As honestly as possible. That's the big out, because I don't know is certainly an option. It may be a matter of permits weren't pulled. It may be a matter of permits not being required, or it may be even a matter of, well, in Myrtle Beach City, the permits are required, but outside of the city, then maybe they're not required. So you want to dive deep into permitting for this one. So here's what we see in terms of the repair costs over the next couple of years. And what we see is that the listing has done no favor to the homeowner in selling this house. Like, if there had been work that was done on any of these systems, then we should be able to pull that out of the listing information. And it's not here, so my guess is that the realtor just sort of relies on the old school. Oh, look at how beautiful it is. Fall in love, fall in love, fall in love, overlook, overlook, overlook. The old real estate playbook is dying, and thank goodness it's dying.
Counterpoint here, maybe nothing's been done to the property.
There's
So there
always
isn't
that possibility.
good to say about it. So the realtor can only put as much lipstick on the pig.
True. It's like, this needs to be more fact-based and not more love-based.
Lots of questions you can ask.
I would come in with a ton of questions for this location. We do see it's got some risk for environmental damage, and it's the South. So what do we got there?
Oh, you got lightnings and hurricanes and tornadoes and hail, and it's just ripe for all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And so it is what it is. Your neighbors are in the same boat, so it's not anything new. There's a lot of good questions to ask here, all associated with stuff that can come down from the sky.
Yep. Has the house been struck by lightning? Is there a whole surge protector on the electrical panel? Listen, it's not just lightning hitting your house. It's lightning hitting the ground near your house, traveling through the ground, and frying your electrical panel because there's no surge protector on it. The sad thing is you can usually go to your utility and say, hey, do you have a surge protector that I can stick on here? And many times they'll have a program to put them on your house. Toxic exposure, mold. If you closed the door and went away on vacation, came back 3 months later, there'd probably be some serious mold formation in there. So you want to take a look every time you can for mold. Have there been any issues? Can you run a test? When you do the inspection, make sure that you look diligently for mold formation. Have you had any issues at all with mold at this property? Like you said, termites.
Got the mites.
Got them termites. Termites love that southern air. And this was what we were just talking about a minute ago. So where it's a 43-year-old property, it says no systems are updated. Sometimes things have been updated, but there's no record of it that's publicly available. And so it's going to show as something that's not improved. Maybe it has been, maybe it hasn't. But you need to dive in and figure out what exactly has and hasn't been updated on this location. Mismatched square footage, roof is in fair condition. We'll get to that in a little bit later. And you got a fireplace, which, insurance companies just love. When we look at insurance, the midpoint of insurance estimates are between $2,200 and $13,000. It's a huge range. And the replacement cost on this house is way higher than the market value of the house. So you want to make sure that you get an insurance quote on this house before you figure out, can you afford this house? Because it's $1,000 a month difference in insurance costs. You really want to make sure you have that nailed down before you make that final offer. Well, look at all them risks. Woohoo! Here's the most recent listing, $305,000 in November. Market value is right in the middle of the market value for this location. So it's not underpriced, it's not overpriced. It's fairly priced for the market value of the neighborhood. Here's the listing detail. And then we can go in and see it's got a nice sized lot. It's got trees. The garage has been professionally converted into a master suite. Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. Because this is claiming 4 bedrooms, 3 bath, and the county only knows about 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. This is a Bob Frady special right here.
It raises two questions. Number one, was it permitted and we just don't have access to the permits? And number two, how does that change your tax base? Because now it's 25% bigger in terms of bedrooms, or 33% bigger. That's a whole bunch of questions.
That's more than a whole bunch. That's a ton.
Let's see, 2005, it was listed in 2018, sold in 2019, back on the market in 2025. So it looks like it's been owned by the same people for a little bit of time now, 6 years
6
or
years.
so, which is, ask why they're moving. And this is sort of all over the board in terms of property taxes. This is one of the situations where we have a little bit of an issue because the way that property taxes get reported is really all over the board. And when you have a 50% tax increase, you need to go take a look at the underlying data. And what we're seeing is that the underlying data is all over the place.
Well, what you're seeing is, somebody's just more interested in what they're getting. And they probably did a tax, hey, it's not worth that much back in 2021. The county didn't want to fight it, so they took a reduction on it. And, once you sell, they'll get that information. And then you're going to be surprised when it's back up around $2,000, $3,000.
Yep. Here's the pictures, nice pictures,
Pretty.
good high contrast pictures. So that's all in there. Had a hail event in 2014.
Probably got a new roof.
Yeah, a little while ago. And if we look at the aerial views of the property, the last damaging event is 2018. This goes all the way back to, I can't see in that corner there. Hold on 1 second. May 26th. There you go. Talk about the roof there, John.
We're estimating that it's 9 years old, or it's got 9 years left. It's 12 years old. Shingle, it's about $13,000 to replace it. You got some weird stuff going on there just looking at the picture. Some discoloring. Those might be satellite dishes. You've got, definitely some flat roof. Lots of interesting stuff going on. You definitely would want to get, I hate to say this, but somebody should get up there and take a look.
Yep. You're going to want a dedicated roof inspection for this house. It's about a 3,100 square foot roof. It's got some vents. It's got no tree overhang. It's got some debris, some staining. This roof needs to be examined. Or at least you're going to need a credit for the amount of the new roof before saying, okay, I want to buy this house. Structured foundation, termites, little soil drainage issues, get little water logging. It does get very wet down there. So you want to ask, hey, what happens when the rain really comes down? Does it pond up? Does it make it difficult to pass through? And hopefully they answer you honestly, and hopefully there's no issue. There's no mine subsidence. You don't have a lot of soil frost heaving potential in South Carolina. So we don't have any permits for this location. And permits are not typically needed for minor repairs, painting, or small-scale landscaping. So it is required for new construction, major renovations. The person who did this may not have thought it's a major renovation, but you want to check for sure.
Yeah. Conversion of the garage, that's a big red flag.
That's a big red flag. So flooding potential. Here's our FEMA flood map, and it looks like it's not too bad.
No, but you got some riverine flooding and some coastal flooding.
Yep. You don't have to have flood insurance here. If it's going to make the difference between you being able to afford the house and not, you may not want to get it. There haven't been a lot of claims in this area, which is good. But there is an elevated risk of both riverine and coastal flooding. So you want to take a balanced and cautious approach to flood insurance for this house. The good thing is flood insurance for this house should be relatively cheap because it's outside of a FEMA flood zone. And here we go. Here we go. Myrtle Beach have a hurricane? No way.
No. Lightning? No. Tornado?
No.
No. Winter weather? They get cold snap anywhere now and then, and they're not prepared to deal with it, so you got to deal with it. Earthquake is always my favorite for South Carolina. It is actually very active for earthquakes. Heat wave, it's going to get warm. Ice storms, yes. You got some wildfire exposure. Most people wouldn't be thinking about that in South Carolina, but it's there. And then, of course, hail is fairly rare, as we saw. There was only one hail event. And then, lots of things you won't see. You get the stuff that's associated with the South. So it shouldn't be a surprise. Unless, of course, you're moving there the first time and you don't know any of that.
Myrtle Beach sounds like a great place to have a family house, right, John? Well,
maybe.
Well, there's some things you need to know. If we look at crime,
It's safe.
Yeah.
Sea is okay, people. The U.S. is a relatively safe country. Being average is okie dokie.
that said,
You got a few people you probably don't want to trick or treat at their houses. That's all I'm saying.
yes, and they are the closest
Only
one is
3.
2/10 of a mile away. Quality of life factors.
No, you're not riding the bus anywhere, and you're
Yep.
probably not walking very far to go anywhere. Walk here is not for a purpose except to take a walk. Natural disaster resilience actually pretty good compared to a lot of places. So, Myrtle Beach, when there is bad stuff that happens, they sort of know how to deal with it. You're going to get a little bit of road noise, but no trains or airplanes to keep you awake.
There you go. Nearby points of interest, your childcare, lots of them, lots of stuff around. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, then we'll get into toxic exposure facilities. We've got mold as number one here in this issue, which is no surprise given the
Heat and
area.
humidity, no way to get around it. Everything else, perfectly fine.
Yep, and radon is relatively low in this area. Contaminated sites nearby within 5 miles. The nearest clandestine lab was just 5 miles away. Former. You got some transmission lines nearby, but nothing very close to your house, which is great. You've got a couple of underground storage tanks within a mile. Not a lot you can do about that. So, and you are 1.8 miles from a Superfund site. That is becoming increasingly important to people as a disclosure. I think in Maryland now it's a
Maryland,
required
it's
disclosure.
required.
Not every state does, but that is the nearest Superfund site. And there's 2 within 3 miles. Fire protection and medical are okay. Law enforcement's pretty low in terms of its response, or below average, I should say.
And that's just because they're a little bit away from the police station.
Yep. And there's this fire station close by within a mile, but the police department is about 5 miles away. Now, police are a little bit more mobile than fire. You don't have your fire station riding around the street, your fire department riding around the street looking at put houses out. Well, you do have that with police. Estimated utility costs are about just under or around $200 a month. Yeah, a couple $100 a month. If you want to get solar information, you can. Insurability that's interesting is the replacement cost is way higher than the market value.
3 times the price
for this location, which means that if it burns down, it's going to be super expensive to rebuild using a replacement cost of about $450 per square feet, which is not low. It's not low. You would think that some areas would be less expensive, but this is not one of them. So the replacement cost is what's driving per square foot is what's driving this total replacement cost. And of course, hurricane and a little bit of wildfire are going to drive some of that rate. If you want to get insurance quotes, you can go to our friends at Kin or our friends at Progressive and get a quote. And then you have your history timeline, which gives you everything in timeline order. let's say that you were thinking about 1225 Forest Brook Road in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. What are the top 3 things you'd be looking for at this location?
Top 3 things. Number 1 is the roof. That is just, that's gonna be something that needs to be dealt with, and probably sooner rather than later. So that's number 1. Number 2 is we usually don't see a replacement cost that's 3 times market value. So I would be curious to see what's going on there. Whether it's uh, the information associated with the house, whether it's the overall area that's driving the costs. Um, that just seems to be a very large discrepancy. 2 times? Well, within reason. Um, and you see that on a lot of older homes. So maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but I would definitely, when checking for insurance, be asking my insurance agent, what do they see with their replacement cost estimators? Just to make sure that everything is in line. Because insuring it for what you pay for here, it something bad happens and we don't want that to happen, but let's say something does and you're insured for 300,000, you can build back 1/3 of your house. Not helpful. The last thing, and maybe the most important thing, these aren't, these are just my 3 things, not in any particular order. Uh, permits, permits, permits. You added on, and it's stated that it was added on this
Into the
master bedroom
garage.
in the garage. So first of all, you just lost a lot of storage and there's no safe place to keep your cars during a hurricane. So your auto insurance may cost you more because you can't put your cars in the garage. Well, unless they're on top of your bed. But that change, that's something that typically requires permits, and we didn't find any permits. So I'd want to know who did the work. Was it permitted? Does the county know? Because the county clearly doesn't, because it says 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, as opposed to 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. So that's an issue with the size discrepancy, because clearly a garage, is typically 20 by 20 for a 2-car garage. So that's 400 extra square feet. You got a lot of moving parts with this one.
Yep.
Lots of questions.
Yep. It's a reasonably priced home. I think the list price is $305,000 on it. But I don't think that the operating costs are going to be as cheap as you think. So here's the 3 things I would look for at 1225 Forest Brook Road in Myrtle Beach. Number 1 is the roof, just as you thought. It's like this needs a dedicated roof inspection because you're going to be replacing it sooner rather than later. Number 2 is the size discrepancy. Whenever we see the assessor thinking it's a certain size and the listing agent saying it's a different size, it's either a finished basement that they include in square footage that's not technically square footage, or it's an unpermitted improvement to the property. It says, as you say in the listing, that the garage has been converted to an in-law suite, which is great, but also you got to make sure that if building permits are required, that you have them. And if building permits are not required, then you need receipts to see who did the work and how it was done, to make sure that it was done legally. Because when you look at the real estate listing, it says the estimated tax is about $50 a month on this location. It's going to skyrocket because the government is eventually going to want to know exactly how big this house is and get their tax due on it. So that's number 2. And then number 3, have there been any improvements to the systems that just are not noted? When was the water heater replaced? Has the HVAC system been replaced? So I'm not saying that this is a bad house. I'm saying this house comes with a lot more questions than even, a house that costs twice as much might have fewer questions. But because there's so little information available about this house, I would have a ton of questions. Now, they might all be great answers. They might be logical answers, but I would have a ton of questions about this house, because sometimes cheap doesn't mean inexpensive. And this might be one of those situations. Might not be, but it might be.
One of the things that you definitely have to look at when you're buying a house is, here's the description.
Yep.
What's it
Buyer
telling you?
beware. Buyer beware. Oh, I would say one more thing about this house. Do not bypass the inspection. Do not. It's been on the market for more than a month. Don't bypass the inspection. And you're going to find I would bet that the inspection finds some things in here.
Oh, more than a few things. Just think about you changed your garage into a master bedroom suite.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the bedroom part of it that needs more plugs. You've got a bathroom, so you had to put in, sewer and all the rest of that. You now have an extension, essentially more demand on your electrical panel that might not have been up to snuff. There's a ton of questions that need to
Yep.
be answered.
Now you just made me want to change my 3 things again. Okay.
Okay, now what?
Here are the 3 things I would look for, part 2, at 1225 Forest Brook Road in Myrtle Beach. Number 1, there's been a lot of work that's been done. How has that impacted the electrical panel or the electrical service? How has that impacted the sewer line? Has the sewer line been inspected recently? Stuff loves to grow in Myrtle Beach. I've lost 1,000 golf balls in Myrtle Beach, usually because of trees. And those roots need to get their nutrients from somewhere, and it might be in your line. So number 1 is, how has the renovation impacted the systems? Number 2, is the renovation actually legal? And number 3, you're going to have some bad weather there. So how's that roof hanging out? How is that roof going to respond? And I think it's going to be sooner rather than later that you're going to be replacing the roof.
Are you sure?
I have so many questions. I can't fit them all into 3. But hey, listen, it's $300,000. It's a great price for a house. It's a relatively low crime area, relatively quiet area. You got 0.4 of an acre of space. It's got real potential. You just want to make sure that if you're thinking that this is going to cost me $1,800 a month, it might cost me $2,300 a month. And sometimes it's a big deal breaker for people who are trying to buy a house because it's affordable.
And there you have it.
And there you have it. So for those of you who don't know the drill, hit the subscribe button on the YouFace, and because we love that sort of thing. And for this week's episode of Property of the Week, I'm Bob Frady.
I'm John Siegman.
Till next time.